All right, I'm live. Here we go. Welcome to Bleeding Blue, and we are back, officially back after a bit of a hiatus. And oh boy, do we have a treat for everyone. Drew Casey is here. Renato, you usually like to clap whenever I say something good.
There you go. There you go.
Drew Casey is here. If you do not know who Drew is, you better buckle up for quite a resume we have here.
Yeah, Drew's awesome. Drew's awesome.
Fordham Ram, class of 2017. Now, this next thing is the most important part of his resume. He's a St. Peter's Prep graduate, class of 2013. Drew has won a wide range of awards for play-by-play and broadcasting. He's done everything from play-by-play for minor league ball. Yeah, hold your breath on this. Minor league ball, Fordham Athletics, St. John's play-by-play for lacrosse, softball, and soccer, a production assistant for Westwood One Sports, which in my opinion, I love Westwood One Sports, especially listening to like Sunday Night Football, Monday Night Football, and all the stuff that they do there. It's always such a difficult thing to execute national telecasts well, like cough, cough, ESPN, Sunday Night Baseball. I'm not the biggest fan, but anyway. So Drew's a part of that. Westwood One Sports, they do a fantastic job, something that's very hard to do. He's a studio host and producer of IMG College. And Drew works with UConn Athletics, Florida State, covers TCU, Kansas, Boston College, University of Texas, El Paso, too. And of course, Drew is an on-camera host of the pregame coverage at Yankee Stadium, covering highlights, recaps, game previews, and also does voiceover for Yankees On Demand time by time. Oh, boy. Drew, did I cover everything? How did I do?
I wanted to interrupt you and say that you're starting to make things up, but I appreciate the kind introduction. And the most important thing, like you said, prep for life, St. Peter's Prep, and glad to hop on and talk some Yankees with you guys.
Awesome. So Drew's basically living out the life and putting in the work of the stuff that I dream about doing and what I think I'm going to do in my second life. But hence why I started a mediocre podcast. We also
make it your first life. Make it your first life. You still got the time.
Amen. So we also have our beloved Renato Rodriguez here.
Howdy, guys.
And myself. So without further ado, let's bleed blue. And if you're a first-time listener, then we usually have an intro song playing right now, but in honor of last weekend's massacre.
Non puoi dire something, man.
In honor of last weekend's massacre against the Red Sox, no intro song today. We're not doing it.
No.
Not happening. And if you're also a first-time listener, hello. Thanks for listening. My name is Justin. You can follow me on Twitter at jpenix74. This podcast is called Bleeding Blue. It's a Yankees podcast. It's a New York Football Giants podcast once the season really gets started.
Ooh.
Hey, Sam Darnold looked good. We're not talking about that. I'm just going to put that out there. I heard he looked good. Wish the Giants took a quarterback. We will probably make and develop some sort of schedule as the fall comes. But since it's summer, the schedules are still probably chaos. Renato, we'll start off with you today. How are you? And make sure that you promote the thing that I know that you want to promote. Don't forget about that.
Okay. So, I mean, I was feeling awesome until the game going on currently, but I wouldn't want to talk about that right now. Yes, the thing I'm going to promote is I'm doing now series recaps. I used to do daily recaps of the Yankee games. Now I'm doing series recaps on SoundCloud. All right. So you can follow me on SoundCloud.com/Renato-Rodriguez-987353435. We'll put the link in the podcast description. So
that's a good idea. I'm going to do that. I'll do that for you.
That's a very good idea, Justin. But yeah, if you want to listen to some series recaps of all the Yankee series going on from now to the end of the year, follow me there.
And what I like about your recaps is that what a lot of guys on Twitter, like Joe Z and John Boy, and what a lot of people do is they make them they do them instead of, because they do it after the game. So you do it after the series. So what you do is that they're multiple minutes long. So if you're a Yankees fan that doesn't necessarily feel like listening to an hour an hour 20-minute long podcast, but you also want more than a minute recap of each game, they just go to you. You can get, boom, it's quick.
Right.
It's a few minutes and you go in depth and you kind of just free for all it and just say what you want to say, which I kind of like that.
There's a lot of free fall with that. A lot of free fall. A lot of things I like to do with that. With those, a lot of ranting.
Yeah, especially as of late, huh?
Oh yeah. Mr. Boone gets a lot of rants from me lately.
Oh boy. And Drew, how are you doing today, bud?
Not too bad, not too bad. Life is good. If you are following the Yankee game currently, you do know that, the Yankees are on the wrong end of a, 10-5 right now. But all is well. All is well. Happy to be with you guys.
Awesome. So I'm kind of thinking about this episode being like a part interview with you. And then also like since we haven't had a podcast episode in a while, thinking like a state of the evil empire, kind of like, where are we in the season? You know, we're kind of like in the silly days and the dog days of summer where you're kind of post-July, post-trade deadline, but you're still, there's still a ton of baseball left to be played. And I feel like Yankee fans collectively just need to take a breath. And that's what I kind of want this episode to be. I want this to be like, hey, we have Drew Casey on. This is absolutely fantastic. And then also like, let's take a breath, Yankee Nation. Like we need to collectively take a breath as a fan base. So how does that sound with everybody?
I like that. I like that.
Let's do it.
All right. So Drew, we're gonna start off with you. So clearly here's what I did. I went online, went on Twitter. I clicked on your website, and I looked at your resume, and that's what I basically
cheating, man. Cheating.
I had to.
No, it's preparation. That's what we call preparation in the business. You got to be prepared. Almost know what the answers are going to be, or at least where you want to steer the conversation. So yeah, step one to a good sports media professional, right there.
There you go. So you do a whole bunch of stuff. You do from things that you do kind of like behind the scenes with the Yankees, and then your production work, and then also you do play-by-play, whether it be radio, broadcasting. You did some radio shows when you were in college. So I kind of want to ask you, I've been fascinated for quite a few years now, ever since probably like my junior year, my senior year in college, of like sports media. And I really got into sports radio, and then I got into broadcasting, which all in all got me more into sports. Like without all of those things, I wouldn't be into, especially like the Yankees. I would not be as much into the Yankees as I am right now. So I kind of want to ask you, if you maybe know, what's your favorite kind of work that you do now, whether it be like your production work, your play-by-play, your broadcasting, etc. What's your favorite kind of work to do?
So not only because this is a Yankees geared podcast, but my favorite work to do, at least in the work that I do right now, is certainly with the Yankees. When I have the opportunity to be at Yankee Stadium on the scoreboard and all the in-house televisions prior to the game with a preview, whether that's a couple of minutes or closer to 10 minutes, depending on if they were victorious the day before or not, highlights and such. And being in the locker room post game is really a very cool perk of the job. Obviously, you're there to work, and I had an opportunity to be there in a different capacity towards the end of my college career, doing some radio stringing work, which is basically just gathering sound bites for radio stations that are not in the greater New York area. But I would say working for the Yankees, you walk into Yankee Stadium, especially this year, and last year too, but especially this year, you walk in, and I'm sure you guys have been there. You got 45,000 plus people there, and you have 30 plus thousand people there at 6:45 or 6:30 when I'm doing my main role of sort of the game preview, the in-house pregame show, if you will. So certainly the Yankees, but I like to dip around and do it all, at least at this point in my career, and it's served me well so far.
No, that's absolutely awesome. And part of what I wanted to ask you, you mentioned the amount of people that are at Yankee Stadium this year, and you truly are right. I mean, Renato and I were just at a game where They broke some sort of record for most sellouts in a season since the first season. Yeah, Renato, say that fact.
21st maybe or something.
I think it was like 25th sell, 26th sell, but it's like the most sellouts they've had since they opened the new stadium.
So, people are going, and that's, that's exactly, in the words of Joe Girardi, except not really. It's what you want instead of it's not what you want. So timing is everything, right? This can be kind of like a no shit Sherlock kind of question, but in your experience, timing is everything. How much more fun is the job? Like now that you've been with the Yankees since last year, right?
Correct. Since last year in this current role. Yep.
Awesome. So how much more fun is the job, and how much more fun is the work that you do? And maybe not even just with the Yankees, but in general, when the team and the athletics that you're covering, when they're more successful, and when the product on the field of play is more entertaining, like how much more fun does that make the job, or does it really not make a difference at all?
No, here's what I'll say to that. It does make a difference, but it also shouldn't and really doesn't in the long run. And what I mean by that is, well, it makes a difference in terms of what you might get out of your job, or what you might be able to present to the people viewing your work or watching it or listening to it or whatever, because the players will be more receptive, they'll be more available, and they'll be generally happier and more pleasant to see you. Just a person-to-person interaction. Whereas if you or I or Renato went to work one day and had a really good day for whatever reason, we're going to be a lot happier when we get home, as opposed to if we had a really bad day, or if it was raining, or if we got caught in a thunderstorm, maybe we wouldn't be as happy. So it certainly helps from that perspective. But from the professional perspective, you're there to do a job. You're not a fan. There's there's no cheering. There's no nothing like that. And I'll get more on that in a second. But you're there to do a job, and you have to do that job, and you have to ask the hard questions when they lose, or if somebody makes an error, or if people are questioning a decision that was made maybe by the manager or the coach, things like that. So those are the tougher points of the job. Sometimes those can be the more rewarding parts, because you can develop even more of an interpersonal relationship with a player or a coach, because they acknowledge that you asked that question, but you phrased it in a way that was respectful, and they know that you're there just to do a job. And then in the future, that can pay bigger dividends. But shorter answer to your question, it's a lot nicer when the team is winning. Everyone's a lot happier. But at the end of the day, it's still a job to do to provide whatever service to the fans. Usually, that is you are.
Now, if there's one thing that I know about New York sports broadcasting, and you mentioned work and all the things that comes with the job of covering a team, is that if you want to make it big, you go to Fordham. Like, if you want to make it big, that's the place to go. From Vin Scully, Michael Kay, and then a personal favorite I know of Renato and myself, Ryan Rucco.
Yeah. Love Ryan Rucco.
Maybe we'll save our hot takes on how much we love Ryan Rucco for maybe another time. But
Rooks is a very good guy. He's a great person too, as well as a talented broadcaster.
And R2C. Oh, I listened to 2 episodes. I'm a little behind on R2C2, so I listened to 2. I banged out 2 episodes today, and I love it. But in terms of, I've always wondered, because Fordham's a Jesuit school, and
sure,
that's something that I love prep, and I go to St. Joe's University myself right now. Okay. I can't quit my Jesuit education. But what's in the water in Fordham? That's really my question. What do they do? What do they preach that separates themselves from the others? Is it necessarily of the path that they put you on and the handshakes that you can shake and whatever? So what does Fordham do to put themselves and to give you the tools to be the most successful broadcasters and in the business?
So it's an interesting question. If you look at a lot of, and this goes for on the air and behind the scenes as well. Obviously, a lot more behind the scenes, because there's just so many more positions behind the scenes. But you look at a couple of schools. Fordham comes up a lot. Syracuse comes up a lot, and they're different reasons. But we'll stick with with Fordham. Number one is where it is in New York City. So you have access to a lot of professional sports teams. Of course, the Yankees being one, the Mets being the other. You go to the NBA, you go to NHL, the NFL, and all the other minor league teams. There's 2 minor league teams in Brooklyn and Staten Island. So you have all those opportunities there. Okay, great. But so does Columbia, and so does NYU, and you can go on and on and on. As to all these schools have these opportunities. So why is there that extra thing, or why is there a track record? Well, it starts with a little bit of luck at first. Vin Scully went to Fordham and, well, basically started the radio station at Fordham while he was playing baseball at Fordham. And, well, he's arguably the best ever. So that's a good place to start. Yeah. Obviously, we didn't know that in 1946. But since then, people saw, and, you get a little lucky along the way. Mike Breen and Michael Kay were in school together. The station was student run, and they just had high standards. That's really the key, high standards. The station really changed hands and really revamped into cultivating those relationships. And the station at Fordham is WFUV, which you can hear in parts of northern New Jersey on 90.7 FM, mostly a music station. But to not go off track, so after Mike Breen and Michael Kay, those guys both went to Fordham in the 80s. And then the station kind of transitioned more to a professional radio station that just so happened to be on a college campus. And they brought in a couple of broadcast coaches. Marty Glickman was one. And then after Marty Glickman retired and later passed, they brought in a second executive producer by the name of Bob Aarons in 2099, right around there. And he just revamped the whole program. He just retired recently, within the last year. But he was able to take a background that he had in production of commercials and contacts he had developed over a 40 or 50-year career. I took the job in Fordham when he was in his about 60 years old. And he just cultivated relationships with all those sports teams that we mentioned, was able to gain some press access. So in the locker room as a reporter, reporting for radio, completely legitimate. Use the sound bites on our website now, or on their website now. And of course, in the mornings and such like that. So that radio station really was key. Those relationships, the talk show that we have, or that they have, One-on-One, which is on Saturday afternoons, has been going for about 43 years now, longer than WFAN, actually.
Wow.
But just longest, New York's longest running sports call-in show is what they call it. So those opportunities, you have the station, you have the alumni, and the alumni are very accessible. You mentioned Ryan Rucco, other people who recent Spiro Ditas, who does NFL games on CBS, and a couple others, especially the recent Tony Reale. These guys are very accessible to the people who participate in the radio station there. And that's great. I mean, relationships. We had somebody I went to school with, actually. He was a little bit older than me. He's the new voice for the Cincinnati Bengals on TV for the preseason. Just started last night. They had a game on Thursday night this week. So it's all about sort of that relationships, and it's been able to kind of build on itself. And Fordham also has a great academic program and a great academic communication side of things and journalism, as well as a great newspaper. And it's in New York City. So sort of all of those things have contributed to why, I wouldn't say if you want to make it big, but why a lot of people have been successful in the industry, kind of just building up on what has come before, and everyone having that high standard, not wanting to let anyone down who's come before them.
I think you're pretty modest about the making it big part. You're pretty you're very humble, Drew. I mean, really, like Fordham, I'm going to use the word, studs. Usually describe. I mean, I'm a nerd. I'm a nerd about this. I really am. From like, I'm a criminal justice major who's a nerd about sports broadcasting. But really, Fordham produces studs. Like, usually you describe an athlete as a stud, but they really do. And I kind of get, like I said, I'm a nerd about it. I'm a nerd about the play-by-play, sports radio, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, no, it's a how do I say this? It's a very rewarding career. There's a lot of work, and you don't necessarily start really high. I've been fortunate where I've been able to, I work for the Yankees a couple of games a year, probably probably about 6 or 7 games on the scoreboard or so by the end of the season, which is incredible. Really is incredible. And you flank that with other things that I do, and this is how everyone does it. There's really no defined path. It's you have to have a certain attitude of being a go-getter, being hardworking, and also being able to always learn and have some skill to start with. So it's been a cool path so far, and I wish I knew I could tell you where it was going. No idea, no clue, but we'll see.
Yeah, that was. I'm not gonna lie. That was actually gonna be a question I was gonna ask you. Like the 5 years from now, where is Drew Casey? I that's something that I was gonna ask because you've done so many different things.
Well, I can tell you one thing: he won't be playing shortstop for the New York Yankees, as I probably would have said. Let's see, 18 years ago or something like that, or 15 years ago when I was still playing baseball. Young, very, very young, until I realized, oh, yeah, okay, yeah, I'm not even playing in high school, so we're not seeing the field very much. But yeah, I don't know. 5 years from now, it could be a lot of places. I hope I'm still with the Yankees. I really enjoy it. Yeah, but we'll see. Things are always changing. Managing schedules, you just never know. Might not even be in the country for all I know, but probably.
You did some work with the Olympics too, right? With Westwood One.
I had I'm fortunate to head to Southwest Korea, head west to South Korea this past Olympics in February. So let's see, it's August now, 6 months ago. Wow, 6 months ago for about a month. Yeah, and helped with all of the pretty much any radio coverage you would have heard was out of Westwood One, which was branded with NBC, and I just had an opportunity to be one of their producers for their skiing coverage, which was a lot of fun. A lot of fun out there.
How crazy is that? Because I mean, I tell you what, I freak out because I'll tell you what, I'm even freaking out right now. Like I don't have a lot of besides like our little interview kind of talk with you. I barely have any notes available, and I'm like freaking out. I'm like, I don't know what I'm going to talk about. So I can't imagine. You said you covered skiing.
So it was on the production side of things, but as the producer for our play-by-play and color analyst, our color analyst really carried it. He was a former Olympic skier, so he knows a lot of the distinct disciplines. But you still need to know in case they have a question.
Yeah,
you want to be familiar with it. You're obviously not going to know. Well, this skier from the Czech Republic's sister is actually the brother of this guy on the hockey team. No, I'm not going to know that. And the broadcasters probably don't even, they might know that. But just knowing the basics, there was a learning curve for sure. I made sure I knew what was sort of going on with skiing once I kind of realized I was going to be doing a lot of that from the production role. And then it's a lot of, a little bit of creative thinking. So again, radio is obviously sound, audio, there's no pictures. So okay, if somebody's calling a skiing race in South Korea, all right, now why is he in South Korea? How do we add value to that? Well, if there's no sound behind that, well, why is he in South Korea? Why are people listening? Skiing down the hill, 43 seconds at gate number 10. No, you want some sound. So, thinking creatively of finding ways, which we didn't really have to do. It was kind of provided for us, but still using sound effects, things like that, editing things in place, because you're not going to carry all 150 racers live and things like that. But yeah, a little bit of a learning curve, but that's what makes it fun sometimes. I'm doing a volleyball match coming up. Marquette is playing St. John's in volleyball. I think it's early October, but in late September, I'll be watching Marquette volleyball playing Wisconsin or somebody on the computer, and just kind of refamiliarizing myself with the game and then going deeper into the teams. That's a little bit kind of deeper than just a production role. But yeah, I guess it's all about being prepared or having at least some talking points. And everyone's different, though. I mean, that's just how I go about it.
Renato loves volleyball.
I love volleyball.
Hey, Prep's got a pretty good team, right? Still? Do they?
Huh?
Does Prep still have a good team?
Yeah, they're competitive. Not as good as when we were at Prep, still competitive.
Bayonne and Harrison still really good.
Yep, especially Harrison. Actually, Bayonne beat us. Actually, yeah, Bayonne beat us.
Really? Okay. Yeah, no, volleyball's cool. Volleyball's cool, especially. I mean, tell you what, I don't know how I good luck me jumping over a net to spike a volleyball. If I could jump that high, great. If I could spike the ball, great. I can't even do one. Can't do both. Sorry.
Oh yeah, the
I'll
fast
talk about it.
the fast twitch muscle fibers. A lot of these sports, but the fast twitch muscle fibers it takes to. Well, not only that, and the timing of it too. Like you can't just be, an athlete. You have to get that timing down and that repetition down. It is insane. It really is insane.
Yeah, I don't know. That's why baseball is still a lot of hand-eye coordination, but still less than that volleyball synchronization. You're not trying to rob a home run in every play in baseball.
All right, so you mentioned before that, and this was going to be one of the things that I asked you. I'm glad you brought it up that you are in the locker room. How often are you in the locker room for the Yankees?
So whenever I cover a game, so I work directly for the Yankees and in the scoreboard role, like I said, probably work out to be 5 to 7 games or so. So if they win, we'll be down there recording things for the scoreboard the following day for Yankees social media channels or Yankees on Demand, depending on the story. If they lose, we might not necessarily be recording anything, but I'll still usually go down there just to kind of get the mood and be familiar in case anything, wild happens. The other night, I also do some stringing work still, which is a voicer report to send to radio stations far away outside the New York area. And it was the night that Chase and Shreve got traded, and he got the news, and he was crying in the locker room and things like that. So you really didn't expect that, but just being there, you kind of you go through that. So pretty much every game that I do get to cover, I've covered about between those two roles, about 15 to 20 games so far this season. That'll round up. I'm going to get busy with college things soon, but it'll round up being about 25 or 30 games. So in the locker room, probably 80% of those times, and it's a lot of fun. It really is a lot of fun.
So what are some? So here, I guess we'll start off with this because I could you could basically ask the question of who have you interviewed, but how about like funniest interaction you've had in the locker room post game interview, or maybe you're not even asking a question to yourself,
yeah.
but like a moment where you're just like, what did he?
I've got an answer for you really quick. 2014 All-Star game in Minneapolis. I was there covering it for the radio station at Fordham, and that was Derek Jeter's final All-Star game. And Derek had already spoken and done his thing. The other Yankees All-Star that season, me being from the radio station in New York, talked to everyone from New York especially, was Dellin Betances. It was might have been his first All-Star game. If not his first, it was his second. Regardless, he didn't pitch in the game, so nobody was talking to him. They'd gotten all their stories about what it's like to be an All-Star before that. Talking to Betances, just asking about the experience, or you bummed he didn't get in, thoughts on Jeter's last game and his performance and all that. In the middle of that question sequence, it was me and Dellin just one-on-one, and we had spoken once or twice before. I don't think he really recognized me, but regardless, Jeter comes over and tells Dellin something to the effect of, "Oh, I'll see you on the plane," or "I'll see you in a little bit. I got to go do this." But because they were the only two Yankees, and they were obviously going back to New York or to wherever the next road trip was together, have the conversation just while I'm talking. And here's the punchline of the story. Derek finishes a quick conversation with Dellin. He turns to me and he says, "So sorry for interrupting you. Have a nice night." And I'm like, what? Well, no. And then Dellin Betances, and then the crazy, and Betances, Dellin saved me at this point. He just picked up right where he was in the middle of an answer. Because I was just, this was, I had not covered a lot of games at this point, especially now. This is my first All-Star game. Really cool experience. I didn't think this was going to happen. And then for Derek Jeter, somebody, that obviously I grew up watching, and probably at that time was, and probably still is, was one of my favorite players as a fan. I was just like, that was the most I've ever been starstruck in the job, but it was a great lesson. And also I think it's a great story, but a great lesson in the fact that it's still a job. You still got to do it. But if Betances kind of just stared at me, I don't know what would have happened for that maybe like 5 to 10 seconds after that happened of me processing sort of what had went down. But it was pretty funny. I was able to smile after that for sure. But it was that was the oddest interaction not oddest, but coolest, I guess you could say so far.
Now you said that was in 2014, right?
I believe it was 2014 in Minneapolis.
So at that point, you're like a freshman.
So I was, I think I was 19 years old. It was during the summer, so I must have been heading into my second year of college. So I was heading into be a sophomore.
So you're interviewing Dellin Betances. There's nobody else up there.
Nobody else in the locker room near him.
Derek Jeter comes up, interrupts you, which was probably
correct. That's how I tell the story in the short version. Derek Jeter interrupted me, and then he apologized to me for interrupting me. Basically, is what happened.
Oh my god! So you probably were like, were you frozen? Like what were you cool about it?
I think that's exactly. I think I just said, "Oh, okay," and then after I like turned back towards Betances, he. Like I said, he just picked right up where he was, whatever question I had asked him. And I think at that moment, while I was holding my microphone, of course, I mean, I'm 6'2", but Dellin Betances is a lot taller than me. I'm still holding it up. He's answering the question, and he wasn't just like 2 words. It was a couple of words. And as he was speaking, no way I was listening to what he was saying. I was kind of just trying to refocus and process what had happened. But it was a cool moment. For sure, and especially to be there covering an All-Star game was a lot of fun.
Man, that's awesome. That's absolutely, and I can only imagine. I mean, you're 6'2", and I can only imagine like some of the smaller, like reporters and like beat writers, and they're there, and 5'9", 5'10" is an average size, and then you have Judge and Betances who are 6'8", like and.
As I'm sure you guys know and have heard, do not get into a fight with the 2018 New York Yankees. They have a serious size advantage over, I think, anyone in this league.
Oh my God, you would see, you saw Shane Robinson, going up for a bunt, and they were throwing, they were kind of like throwing at his head, and this was in Boston, and you just see Giancarlo, like when Giancarlo's had a few times this year, you kind of get to know Giancarlo, like the more and more like looks and stuff that he gives like the scariest stare down I have ever seen. He does these things with like his eyebrows, and it's incredibly scary. And then CeCe just comes walking in and be like, "Hey, are we fighting? Is this like a thing that's happening?" Like he comes walking from like the back of the dugout. And I follow some people on Twitter, like John Boy. I don't know if you know like Talking Yanks and some of the other smaller podcasts, but they make GIFs. That's what everybody does.
Yeah.
They make GIFs now, and and the way that they like commentate on, I find it to be funny. And CeCe was like, yo, we fighting? Is this like he's like poking up his head as he's walking towards the front of the dugout. But yeah, no, you don't want to get into a fight with this Yankee team. No. but there've been a few times where it's been like, okay, like and I'll say this for you, Drew. I know you work for the Yankees, but I'll say this for you. They were throwing at Shane Robinson's head. They were throwing at Shane Robinson as he was trying to put down a bunt, and they weren't even doing it intentionally. So I don't even know they were like ready to go, but there was absolutely no reason to. It was very corny, extremely corny thing to do. What do you think about that, Renato? I've been talking too much.
I mean, that the whole situation is just like, come on, man.
It was funny.
That's pretty much what it was. It was just. I was ready to see Giancarlo CeCe and everyone just go at it. I was just waiting for it. I was like, let's go.
I could just see CeCe though, like, yo, we fighting right now, or is this like happening?
every I don't know. Go throughout the years, and every time someone gets hit, CeCe's like the first guy in the dugout ready to start a fight. It's hilarious.
He's like, I probably haven't watched the game in like 3-4 innings, but we fighting right now.
Let's go. I'm ready.
Oh my God. All right, So we are, I'm going to edit this part out, but I feel like this is a good natural transition. You got to like sense the transitions. I've been trying to sense the transitions as I've been starting this podcasting thing. So I think we're about 25 minutes in, and that's pretty solid. Maybe a little bit more. Renato, I always start the timer late. Always.
Why?
I never start it right on time because I have to get discipline. Okay. It's always like I'm 3-4 minutes, maybe like 3 to 5, 10 minutes in, and then I'm like, shit, I didn't start the timer. So then I start the timer to make sure that we're not on here for an hour and 40 minutes. There was Brett, Drew.
Brett's not here.
I'll answer to anything pretty much.
Brett's not here. Drew, there was one time where I think this was our first episode where I got to the end of it, and then I'm like, because this Google Hangout thing doesn't tell you like how like the time that you've recorded. It's just you can just go and go and go.
Okay. So
the first episode that we did, I didn't have a timer. I'm like, I'm pretty sure we've been recording for 2 hours. Like I was like, I'm like 70% sure we've been doing this for 2 hours. I trimmed it down to an hour and a half, and then I'm like, okay, that's we can't have any of that. Even though recently there have been Yankee podcasts that have been doing an hour and a half just because there's been so much to talk about. Neither here nor there. Drew, thank you so much for that interview, that quote unquote interview portion. Renata, you went to high school with Drew. Do you want to ask him anything? Any kind of like insights you have?
Well, I'm gonna tell you an insight, Justin.
Tell me an insight.
Well, back when I left prep and when Drew was starting, there was a thing called Marauder Radio Network. That's how pretty much I got to know Drew pretty much from all the interactions with the radio station we had. Pretty fun.
Yeah, I don't think it's anymore, unfortunately.
Nah. Which
But
sucked.
that was a lot of fun.
But now
That's really
they
how I
have,
got into it.
they have TV studio now. So
Oh, they finally got that up and going. That's great.
yeah.
I should have done that.
Yeah, Mr. Trotter now runs it, and I'm helping with him this year. So with football.
What Justin, what year are you at St. Joe's?
I'm a junior, which is crazy.
You're gonna be a junior in
I'm gonna be a junior. Yep, I'm gonna be in DC for an internship.
Okay.
At the DC Corrections Information Council. So it's basically a governmental agency that oversees DC residents who are incarcerated in jails and prisons across the country, and then also DC jails and prisons in like within the DC area. They do like inspection reports, they check in on people and all that fun stuff, and they ultimately report back to like Congress and government, all that kind of fun stuff.
Have you had a chance to meet Joe Lenardi?
Who was that?
Joe Lenardi, he's the college basketball guy on ESPN. He does all the brackets, all the bracketology. He does St. Joe's. You're talking St. Joe's Philly, right? You go to St. Joe's Philly?
Mm-hmm.
He's the color commentator for St. Joe's men's basketball, and he's a professor at St. Joe's also. I think he teaches a class or a couple. It's probably I hear it's impossible to get into. I think the name of the class is like college basketball bracketology or something.
I've never heard that. I'm sure it is a thing, but I'm sure
I don't know
it's
if
like
it's
a very
exactly called that, but
Funny.
do they have like a radio station there? Have you ever thought about doing anything there or no?
They do have a radio station there, and you want to know what? Until you just said that right now, it never crossed my mind. Until you said that literally right now. Now here's the thing.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a New York sports guy.
Yeah, okay.
Schools in Philly. Now, obviously, I could go on. There are other sports shows, and I could go on. I was asked to. I have a friend who goes to St. John's, and I was asked to maybe call into their show sometime. So I'll be doing that.
Yeah, totally. You're pretty good at it. I'm not even lying. I wouldn't just say that. So.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, you should.
Shucks.
You should get back from DC. I would consider. I don't know what the radio setup is. If you get a show, or if you can talk about St. Joe's sports or whatever, or the athletic department.
Yeah, definitely. When I get back in the spring and the school in the spring, I'm gonna, I'll be in the swing of stuff. But I'm excited because I'm only gonna be taking one class, and then I have the full-time internship from 9 to 5. So I'm hoping most of my evenings are gonna kind of be free. So I'm really hoping to really like get some sort of schedule down for Bleeding Blue, and as the postseason comes around, and then also we're gonna be in the regular season for football too.
Knock on wood.
What do you mean, Renata?
Knock on wood for the postseason. Knock on wood.
No, I don't even want to hear that right now.
Knock.
I don't even want to hear that. But yeah, especially regular season with the Giants too. I was kind of told by some people, hey, try to narrow down the podcast to one thing. But I think it can work. I really do. If you put out, instead of doing series recaps for the Yankees like some Yankee podcasts do, you do one a week, and then you cover 2 series, and I think that's perfectly fine.
I think so.
And then same thing with the Giants, you do one a week, and Giants podcast do one a week, and that's fine too. So I'm really looking forward to it. But I thank you, Drew. I appreciate the compliment. So why don't we get into our state of the evil empire?
Dun, 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 dun.
Renato, I want to start off with you. You've had some really I'm a pretty mellow guy. I'm a pretty mellow Yankees fan.
You are pretty mad. I will say that.
Renato is not a mellow Yankees fan. He reacts to everything.
I'm not a mellow fan of anything. Any of my teams.
Drew, what are you now? Now, Drew, let me ask: did you grow up a Yankee fan? If not, what are your kind of like your teams that you kind of grew up with?
So I did grow up a Yankee fan, New York area supporter. New Jersey native, so big Devils guy. Carry over Nets fan, and unfortunately, I will not be on this podcast during football season. I don't think as a New York Jets fan, but like you said earlier, Sam Darnold, pretty good night tonight against the Falcons in preseason game number 1. But Yankees fan growing up, but now it's a little bit different.
So Drew, you pretty much tell me you like all my teams. That's great. It's like
that's a 4 for 4 right there?
That's a 4 for 4. Pretzel.
All right. What's the least follow the NBA?
At least all of them. Yeah, they were the only reason why. Because I grew up a Knicks fan, but now ever since they moved to Brooklyn, so whatever. I just don't care.
Yeah, and they just haven't been very good either. So it doesn't help.
So Drew, are you more of a? I can guess, but are you more of a kind of like reactionary person where you just like, you get like really mad like right away, like Renato's like, we suck, or are you more like mellow and like take it easy and you're more of a big picture laissez-faire kind of guy?
So the sports media as a whole lends itself to be very reactionary, but I am exactly the opposite. The latter there, the more long-term look, assuming there is a long-term to look at. We're not on September 30th right now, and we have to win 3 more games. We have 0 games left. That's realism there. But no, more long-term, laissez-faire, not necessarily reactionary, unless it's something really, really abhorrent, or if you get a, you never wish this on anyone, but if there's a major injury, then you can kind of reactionary, right. But more so long-term.
So Renato, since mellow and long-term big picture is not fun, why don't we start off with you? Throw out a topic, throw out a moment, throw words out of your mouth and project them vocally, and then we will talk about them.
So, I mean, should I start with the Boston series? Should I just go with that?
Start with really. This is now because, like I said, we haven't had an episode in quite some time. Big picture, whatever. If you want to start with the Boston, if you want to start with, because there's honestly been patterns with this Yankee team, and I really feel like the Boston series, they were just vomited. Like it was just. Think of all the things, kind of like the little micro problems that were wrong with this Yankee team. You can really kind of pick them throughout the season. They were really just vomited. Like nice picture, Justin, but nice mental picture. But they really were, in my opinion, they were just vomited out, and they were all exemplified and kind of like you kind of zoomed into what was wrong with this Yankee team throughout that 4-game series in Boston. So throw anything out there.
So I'm gonna start off with just that first game. That 4-0 lead, second inning, Fenway Park. You're thinking, all right, we got the Red Sox what they want them. We're gonna win this first game, get the momentum in the series, hopefully win 3-4 like you guys wanted. What happens? Aaron Boone happened. Sabathia didn't pitch efficiently, right? But he still could have given you another inning, but no. Let's bring in Jonathan Holder, a rookie, into Fenway Park. We all know how rookies do in Fenway Park for the Yankees, right? We've seen it happen before. Chase Wright, you guys remember back in the day?
Wow, that's going way back.
That's going way back. Gave up 4 homers in a row on Southern League Baseball in his major league debut. That's pretty epic. Holder pretty much essentially went one step further and gave up 7 runs without quitting now. So, pretty good, right? Pretty good. That cost us the game right there. And then what else happened? Give me some memories.
In that same game, or
And then the series. That was pretty much the first game right there.
hold on, bad podcasting. Edit it out.
Oh, right. Oh, that's right. We got one hit by Wick Purcell. Right. That's another one. Good job.
Game 2.
That's game 2.
Yeah, that was Friday night at a 2-hour game.
Right. That was the game that the offense literally had 0 bites.
Now note about that. We'll I guess we're kind of just like recapping right now. So we'll kind of like go back to kind of like these moments. So game 2 is Rick Porcello. The Yankees hit the ball really hard that game. Like they hit the ball hard.
Doesn't matter.
But I'm about to say I've been listening to John and Susan a lot more than I've been watching TV lately, just because I've been driving in my car, and they were talking about exit velocity, and I believe this was last night. And I'm kind of like a nerd too with like the whole analytics thing. You know, if you've listened to this podcast, I think you obviously know that. But if you're a first time listener, I'm a mellow guy who thinks big picture and likes analytics. So I'm a typical millennial, right? Millennial baseball fan. And I kind of, exit velocity, I kind of like to look at that. I like to have guys who hit the ball hard. But John and Susan said, if you put the ball in the air, doesn't matter how hard you hit it. It's when you put the ball on the ground and you look at how hard Giancarlo Stanton hits the ball, right? And how hard he hits the ball on the ground. And that's why he has so many infield singles. He hits the ball so hard on the ground. Infield always has to play back. So if he hits the ball maybe not as hard on the ground, likely that he's going to beat it out for an infield single. So I kind of had like my epiphany because of how hard I've been on Giancarlo, because of his infield singles, because batting average defenders bothers me. Oh, Brett, I did it again. I did it again. Drew's never going to come on because it's like that damn kid couldn't get my name right. Drew, analytics, batting average. I'm a big OPS guy instead of really looking at batting average. Where do you kind of fall on the spectrum? Or you're kind of like medium, where you kind of like the old school approach of like, I like guys that like get on base, and batting average, because in my opinion, batting average just shows contact. And then I have also other people on this podcast that like batting average and don't like guys with the low batting average, et cetera, et cetera. Where do you kind of fall on the spectrum?
So until recently, I would say that I was still very much of the traditional source of, if you're not hitting 275 or 280, then what are you doing in the major leagues? That was a couple years ago. That's changed. The game has changed. That's something that people are slowly starting to realize, with the shifts and such. I mean, that's a very valuable part of what you're generating from analytics. I like WAR as a statistic because that kind of encompasses pretty much everything. And I've gotten bigger on OPS with more of the value of runs. But other things like exit velo, where I would say I'm not quite exactly in line with what John and Susan might have said in that context. But if you hit the ball hard, well, it doesn't matter how hard you hit it. If somebody with a glove catches it, it's an out. Or
Right.
if you foul it off, it's a foul ball. But that said, it is pretty cool to see Giancarlo Stanton hitting balls 120 miles an hour out of the stadium in under 2 seconds or something like that. But no, I'm more of the kind of in the middle, I think would be fair. I've come a long way to kind of lessen my stance on batting average, but by the same token, and I don't want to go to another topic, but just as a digression, why is Jose Reyes still in baseball hitting 180-ish, 70-ish? I think you still need to be hitting above 230, 240, and you better have some power numbers to back that up if that's where you're at.
I 100% agree with that.
He's a Met lifer. What can you say?
The Mets could scam an organization, but it's neither here or there.
They're rolling out the red carpet, and then they're gonna let him go. He's gonna have his press conference at the end of the year, and that's gonna be that. Anyway, so hit the ball off hard. Porcello, game 2 against that Boston series, they just found Jackie Bradley Jr.'s glove for most of them. Hit the ball hard. Game 3, Chance Adams, pretty decent start.
Well,
Ninth inning rally,
too little, too late.
too little, too late, and you kind of saw that a few times where Yankees. You saw that in the Royals series before. No, damn it, bad podcasting. You saw that in the Orioles series before. 2 outs. You gotta. I'm sorry, bottom of the ninth. You gotta.
Oh, like the game we went to, right?
Yeah, the game. We were at that game. Glaber hit a home run, ninth inning, 2 outs, too little, too late. But Chance Adams looked good, and that was pretty encouraging. Game 4.
Oh my god!
You get Renato. You take the wheel on this one for Game 4.
Like everything, okay. You think we had to at least 1-1 against them, right? You score 4 runs off the bullpen in the 7th, and you're thinking, all right, we got Britton, we got Betances, we got Chapman, we got this. Get ball game, right? But what does Chapman do? Explain to me explain to the viewers, Justin. What did Chapman do in the 9th inning?
Well, I'm gonna be honest. I went to bed.
You went to bed.
I put on John and Susan.
Why did you go to bed?
I turned on MLB at bat.
Why?
And I listened to John and Susan because that's how good Chapman's been this year.
Yeah,
That's how good Chapman has been. Like, you can kind of like, all right, kids, come on, get ready. Let's get ready to go home. Chapman's coming in.
There's only one guy that I'm ever going to feel comfortable in that situation, and we all know that's Mariano Rivera. That's it. No, I don't care who you are, especially at Fenway Park. It is never over till 27 outs. I have seen it throughout my whole life, Justin. Okay?
I didn't go to sleep. I just kept the game on the radio, and I listened to the whole debacle. It was bad. Is it fair to say? Here we go. So instead of a podcast, this is going to become a little bit like sports radio. Is it fair to say that Chapman has a bit of a bugaboo against the Red Sox, that he has a little bit of something that he's got to like shake off, and he's not really like the best against him?
No, I just think Boston has his number.
That's what I'm kind of saying. Like,
that's not a bugaboo. That's just Chapman doesn't know how to disguise this. Like, in that game, he walked the entire ballpark, Justin. The entire ballpark was being walked in that 9th inning. Okay? It was awful. And, like, he almost did that last night, too.
Yeah.
Like, there's times during the year that Chapman loses the control. And that's
you can count.
Wait, that's because Boone doesn't pitch Chapman as much as you should pitch Chapman. Chapman's the one guy that needs work consistently.
They mentioned it on the broadcast last night. I don't know if it was John and Sue. I think it was on TV. But how Romine, it was on TV. Romine was calling for off-speed stuff because you kind of get the mechanics more when you throw the off-speed compared to the fastball, where you're a bit more. It's a bit more wild. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, I guess you're right, because this baseball team, and I think Drew, you can speak to this a little bit, and maybe some differences that you've seen between how this team is managed this year, or maybe particularly like the bullpen. No, this is actually more lineup and bullpen kind of a conversation. Aaron Boone is I mentioned this word, laissez-faire, and that's what I kind of like about Aaron Boone, that he's very like laissez-faire. He's not gonna, and I know Renato, you don't like that, but I kind of like that, where Aaron Boone doesn't necessarily wear his emotions on his face, and he doesn't put everything, he doesn't like, you don't see him visually being frustrated in the dugout. Joe Girardi, that would be the opposite. He would look miserable during press conferences. And
during the game, he looked miserable in the
during a game, he would look miserable, but during press conferences, you would see the hand would be over the face, and you would just be like, "Oh, Joe, you look."
His hand was over the face during I've seen it, like Yankee blowouts. He'd be like hand over his face the whole entire from 7th inning on. Just it's like, come on, guys.
Yeah, so there's a bit of a difference in the way that it's managed, and really it's very conservative. And is that fair to say, Drew?
I don't know if conservative is the right word. I think it's long term. So the Yankees have, and all teams should have this information, and even if it's not backed up by data or math, it just seems logical. 162 games over the course of roughly 185 to 200 days, somewhere in there, depending on rainouts and this and that, and when you start your season and opening day and all that. Over the course of that season, any human who's playing baseball every day, even, and baseball is not as taxing as football or other sports. That's clear. But if you play every day, you're going to get tired. You're going to break down. Look at all the injuries, all the arm injuries and various other injuries. So the Yankees have elected to go with a plan that will rest players on not necessarily a schedule, but Aaron Boone would say something to the effect of, I wanted to give a guy a day during the series, and that's why he gave the guy off. He doesn't like pitching the bullpen, anyone in the bullpen more than 2 consecutive days, which I don't even think he's pitched anyone 3 consecutive days. Maybe once,
Not that I know.
and one random opportunity. So he's trying to conserve the energy for, the long goal, which is, in terms of this season, is the playoffs and getting and winning World Series number 28. So that's the technique. And I think the one thing that I've seen from a lot of Yankee fans across, various outlets as of late is that this team is terrible. This team is not. No, this team is on pace for 103 or so wins. I mean, most years, this year included, that would win you at least 4 divisions.
Right.
If the Astros weren't having a great year, they'd win 5 divisions. The Red Sox right now are on pace to be the 3rd best team in the history of baseball. So you have to acknowledge that a little bit. I know the Yankee fans will never want to say positive things about the Red Sox or give them any credit. But at a certain point, you have to give them a little credit. And the Yankees still have a shot. It's August. It's mid-August, and they play the Red Sox 6 more times. And their schedule is favorable compared to the Red Sox. So that's my sort of from seeing, Aaron Boone talk about it. Pretty much, it's asked almost every day. Why is he not playing? Why is the big thing that a lot of people hung their heads on was that doubleheader against the Royals, I think it was. Now we're going back probably 3 weeks or so, maybe even more. When Shane Robinson played both games, and many other players only played one. Well, the fact is, you have to look at it. Will Shane Robinson be on a postseason roster?
Hopefully not.
Probably not. He might be, and he's been playing pretty well. But there's a lot of things that go into it, and there's a lot of data that the Yankees use that proves this. If you play 145 games versus 155 games, you're going to be a lot more effective and a lot more healthy, not only this season but in the long term. And that's just all the data you want can tell you that, but that's pretty logical, I think. So that's sort of the mentality. And conservative, I think it's just sort of they're using information they now have at their fingertips, and it's backed up. And I don't think they'll be giving, if this becomes a much closer American League East race, I don't think the coaching staff will be giving, Stanton a day off with 6 games to go in the season. Right. I think there'll be a certain point where that's sort of preserved. And the Yankees haven't had a lot of off days too. They really got in a tough situation with all those rainouts in April.
Right.
Just kind of messed with a lot of things. But no, I think it's a different style, and nothing against what it was last year. Joe Girardi just had a different style, and he wore his emotions on his sleeve. Great personality, a great character trait to have. But the Yankees just decided to change that a little bit, and it's worked too so far. So yeah, that's what I'd say.
I agree with a lot of what you said. Renato,
What?
do you have anything to say?
No, I agree with Drew's opinion. I mean, there's nothing I could argue against that.
What I
can't go into the debate with this. It's not debatable. Logic's 100% correct.
I'm gonna find it was today. So I had my first kind of really frustrating moment with. Now I'm not gonna say Boone specifically, but I'm just decision making, and like I said, this, and I've been saying this in our group chat as well, but I haven't had the chance to say it since we haven't released a podcast. This Yankee team, I've been trying to talk Renato and Bokra, and you know those guys, and you know Brett. Brett's not really a Yankee fan, but I've been really trying to talk Renato and Bokra off of the ledge, be like this. This is still a great season. This is still a.
No, I agree. I agree. It is,
and I know you do, but I'm trying. I still try to
listen,
talk everybody off the ledge sometimes.
You know why I get frustrated?
Why?
Ever since the offseason, I had this team as a World Series contender. That's why. Okay, I since I looked at the roster, I'm like, with the success we had last year and adding Giancarlo Stanton, I'm like, it felt like 04 to me with that type of offense. It really did.
And so I said decision making, and the little things that the Yankees have been, I don't want to say doing wrong. It's a fine line here that we're talking about. I don't want to say doing wrong, but maybe they're not perfect. There's no baseball team that is perfect. And one of the things that I would honestly say the Yankees aren't perfect about it's this approach. And it's a long-term approach. It is not a right now approach. It's a long-term approach. So they're not going to sacrifice their long-term goals in terms of who they're going to play, how much they're going to use somebody just to win right now. You look at tonight. They kept Tanaka in.
Bad decision.
They had 1 man out, 2 men on, 3-0 ball game. Turned into a 5-0 ball game. Inning over. Brett Gardner hits a home run, 5-1. Tanaka has 95 pitches, comes out for the next inning. There was nobody warming up at the bullpen until Tanaka allowed the 5th run to end the inning. And there was nobody warming up at the bullpen when there was 2 men on, 1 out, 3-0. Nobody warming up at the bullpen. I had a bit of an come on, get somebody warmed up. I know you trust Tanaka. I know he's had a really good stretch, and I'm a huge Tanaka guy. Yes.
You know the funny part about that? Remember, he took CC in the ball to 77 pitches. So.
Yeah. So you think that they would kind of follow that same kind of trend. My overall point about this is that sometimes with this, I said conservative. That may have been a poor word choice, but with this long-term approach, you sometimes are throwing the white towel in on baseball games that maybe sometimes you shouldn't necessarily throw the white towel in. You saw it against Renato. You were at this game. Was that not the biggest white flag against the Seattle Mariners when Giancarlo Stanton came and he hit that home run and it was a walk-off home run? They brought in Chase and Shreve early in the game.
Yeah, I literally when they brought Shreve, I'm like, okay, game over.
and it was before like the 6th inning, right?
I would think was it in the 5th they brought him in? Pretty sure it was in the 5th inning.
I think it was. I worked that game. I think it was like weird situational. Maybe a lefty matchup. He pitched maybe just 3 batters. Hadn't pitched in a while. It was a little odd, but it was an odd spot for him to come in. That's for sure.
Yeah. So there are just multiple times throughout the season where there have been some decisions that have been made where it's almost like we're waving the white flag on this game, and I definitely don't think that they did that during the Boston series at really any point. Because I guess game 1 is the most debated game in terms of who to bring in and who to leave in. But that's what bothers me at times where I'm not. You see these past 2 seasons, how many great walk-offs have we had? How many great comeback victories have we had? And you kind of want Chase and Shreve. I'm sorry, Chase and Shreve coming out of the bullpen in a 5-run deficit. I get it. Sometimes it's necessary, but in the 5th inning, actually, in the 8th inning, absolutely. And it's the same thing today. Garrett Cole in a 4-run ball game coming out of the bullpen. There's still kind of like a chance to win the game and try to do something. This Yankee bullpen is so stacked and it's so dense and it's quote unquote the greatest bullpen ever assembled, according by some. Again, that's a sports radio thing that I hear all the time. But I don't, not the biggest fan of that approach at times. At times.
Justin, it's actually, I'm going back to my stats here. It's actually the 4th inning with 2 outs.
Wow.
Yeah.
Then that was the Mariners game, right?
Yep. And I think that was Loiza's debut. Yeah, that was Loiza's.
I believe it was. Did he pitch, what, 2/3 of an inning, Renato, in that game?
2 innings.
Oh, he pitched 2 innings.
Wait, who? Loiza or Shreve?
Oh, no, Shreve.
Yeah, it's 2 innings. Yeah, 2 innings.
2 full innings. Wow. Okay, I don't remember that.
Yeah, he lasted a while. I remember they kept him in a long time.
It also could have been a thing where I think at that time the Yankees only had 1 lefty in the bullpen, and Seattle probably stacked it with lefties against the righty. I don't know. There's a lot of you always overanalyze, but
Right.
But no, that's a fair point.
All right, so that's our little. I mean, talking Yanks. I love this phrase. I love this phrase. I like using it in life. I like using it in sports. But talking Yanks kind of stole it. They stole it from me, even though I never said it. Laissez-faire. So I kind of have to give them credit. Laissez-faire kind of approach by Boone and maybe some of the front office and the decision making. So that's kind of like that kind of conversation. 2 guys. I want to talk about our rookies.
Okay.
Our friends Miguel Andujar, Gleyber Torres, mistakes. The spotlight was really on him during the Boston series, and the spotlight has really been on him the past few weeks, even before the Boston series. And we can kind of argue that they've faltered, but then they've also succeeded, and they've kind of elevated expectations, at least in my head, at least with my one guy that I want to say. But Renato and Drew, I want to hear maybe. Actually, no, we'll start with Drew. Have you had any interactions with Andujar or Gleyber, and maybe tell us a little bit about what you've seen from them, and maybe some overall impressions from the not even full season that we've seen them.
Yeah, no, they're I remember working the Gleyber's debut and Andujar shortly then after. The 2 guys were very, very close personally, coming up through the system together, and very good friends, and obviously very talented players. But obviously the best thing you want to do as a young player is come out and steal the show right away, and that's what they did. That's exactly what Miguel Andujar and Gleyber Torres did. Torres got hurt right before Torres was an all-star. Debuted April 22nd as a rookie, was still an all-star. They've each have won Rookie of the Month. They're both going to be in Rookie of the Year conversation, pending sort of what plays out here. But like I said, they stole the show, and everyone's expectations were, these guys are grizzled veterans, and they're going to hit 280 and maybe even get 25 homers and 75 RBIs or something like that. But you have to realize, I mean, they still might be on pace to do those things. You still have to realize these are young players, and a mistake is going to happen here or there. And when the spotlight is on you, those small mistakes can be magnified a lot larger, or a base running blunder or an error in the field. But I think they've certainly overperformed year 1 expectations, and the future is that much brighter. There's a reason why, well, obviously for Torres, why he was sort of untradeable. And the same for Andujar, unless it was some crazy return that Brian Cashman and co were looking for. But no, I think, yes, there were some mistakes, and yes, they were addressed and talked about. But you can't give them, I mean, this is professional sports. You can't give anyone a pass, but still have to realize that it's, I don't want to cop out for them or give them an excuse, but, again, this is my long-term thinking.
Mm-hmm.
Long-term, they've certainly, maybe they underperformed in some of those situations, but overall it's a net, I think, extreme positive. But no, they're fun to watch. They're certainly fun to watch. But no, they're only going to get better and better, I think.
Yeah, and if you go back to the first episode of this podcast, I actually had to apologize in episode 2. I was really hard on Gleyber Torres, and it was for this, I don't want to say lackadaisical, but it just didn't. And honestly, what they have been is they've been mental errors. I think especially on Gleyber's part, they've been kind of like these mental errors that he's had, and then you can visually see that he gets down on himself. It's very obvious. Some players wear their emotions on their sleeve, kind of like we talked about Joe Girardi. Some players, really get frustrated and you can see it. Some guys like Sonny Gray like to laugh it off, and then, fans get really angry about that. But
Or you get Greg Burke who looks like a zombie every time he's out the plate.
Or you get no reaction, and guys are just guys just try to get locked in whatever way they can if they don't do too good. But Glaber looks like a sad puppy dog. He's 21 years old. He's a he's a cute. I'm 20, but he looks like a cute kid on the field. And when he gets sad, he pouts like a puppy. I mean, it's just what he does. And you could see it though. You could see that he really gets down on himself. And I saw this back, if you remember the Royals series where we were in Kansas City and CC Sabathia was on the mound that night. I was in Florida. That's why I remember this. Glaber had like 2 hours and it really cost CC the game. And that was a period of time where a lot of people were questioning CC Sabathia. And I was like, no, it's because he's had bad defense. And then lo and behold, CC's been pretty good ever since then. Neither here nor there. Ever since then, I kind of like really got on Glaber about the errors and the mental errors on the scorecard, mental errors on the field. I really got on him. But then ever since then, he's been good. But then Glaber good. And then the Boston series comes along. And even these past few weeks, there's just been some mental errors. Glaber, I really feel like hasn't risen above that yet from like there's like this period of time where even though he did hit he hit 2 home runs that last game against the Orioles, and nobody was talking about it because of the errors that he committed. And that's tough. That's like really tough that you hit 2 home runs and nobody's talking about your great offensive performance. But somebody that I really feel like he has rose above his struggles is Andujar. I really feel like he's, despite all of these things that have been kind of going wrong for him, he's really risen above it. And you can, again, it's something that you can see. It's like he's really running out these, he's running out ground balls, and you saw he made a really good defensive play, diving defensive play against the White Sox. And of course, what he's doing with the bat is absolutely incredible. I think besides maybe, no, I think he is the best offensive player on the team right now. You can argue besides Stanton, but in terms of average and a collective body of work, Andujar really is the best offensive player on the team.
And if you look at it, you remember Brandon Drury, Miguel Andujar, he didn't have a job. I mean, he is certainly, to go to the overperformed, I mean, he has had an exceptional season where he was not even guaranteed a single, okay, maybe not a single at bat, but a single span of playing 5 to 10 days in a row. Now he's playing seemingly every day. And to go back to what we said before, they're also getting some days off too. I mean, it's not, if you're 30 versus 22 or 20 or 19, or Torres just turned 21, I think. Still need those days to recoup. But no, Andujar, he's been great. He's been great for this team.
Now, Andujar's been a DH quite often, and Neil Walker's played a pretty good third base too. Now, Aaron Boone says it wasn't a timeout. Like Andujar wasn't put in timeout for some lackluster defensive play, and a lot of people don't believe that. A lot of people on Twitter and a lot of level-headed people were like, "Yeah, definitely Andujar was in a bit of a Aaron Boone timeout for a day or two for playing DH." Do you think that he was kind of like in a bit of a timeout whenever Neil Walker would get some time at third base and he would be the DH?
It's an interesting point. It's obviously possible. But I think another thing with that, specifically Neil Walker, he's really hitting the ball well. And is he a better third baseman than Miguel Andujar defensively? But he's more of a veteran. You can give him that.
Right.
And like I said, Andujar is playing third base every day. And maybe not, I don't think timeout, but hey, okay, take a day off, relax, get back to it, forget about it, and still go, try and go 3 for 4 at the plate for a day or two. But I don't know. I mean, that's something that I don't think we'll really ever know. But young players, I would say I don't think so, but certainly possible.
Now, Renato, you've had your frustrations with Andujar, but especially really Glaber. Do you want to talk about that for a few?
I mean, both of them have like we were saying, they have committed a lot of mental errors this year. But it is part of their rookie process, and I think like I know like we've been hard with them at times, but I think they're both gonna be very good players in the future, especially in with his bat. His bat speed is something to watch, man. Like how quick the guy releases his swing. It's just incredible. And in terms of Walker, I think he should be playing every day right now. I really do. I'm even saying put him in right field for Shane Robinson at this point. I hate Shane Robinson. That's just he's not worth space in this team, but I just
Yeah, I don't. Neil Walker. I remember when he played right field. I think it was the doubleheader against. Again, we're talking about this again. The doubleheader against the Royals. He played an inning or two. He said after the game, "Yeah, I've never played the outfield since single A or rookie ball." So I don't. Maybe he's a stretch option. I don't know.
I'm telling you, from the 2 games I've seen Shane Robinson play in right field, I'd rather have Neil Walker. That's it.
He's bounced back. Robinson's bounced back defensively a little bit, but oh boy, were those that first series?
Robinson, Justin, how badly he misplayed that line drive.
That was bad. That was bad, but he's kind of recovered since then. Oh my goodness, great! I screamed. I usually don't scream. The second the ball was hit off the bat, I'm like, "Why are you running forward?" I screamed, and it was like instinct. Like I was told in Little League, the first step you take is backwards, not forward. Oh my god! But yeah.
You know who I would like on this team? I would like Curtis Grannis on this team right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, my father has a quote. You want to hear what my father's quote was?
What's your father's quote?
It's good to want.
Hey, it's still wait the deadline still not till September 1st, so still got a possibility.
Yeah. What just happened? Was there any? What the board just went to the Phillies anyway. I want to make one more point about Glaber. And then maybe we'll move on for a few more minutes, and then we'll wrap up.
Breaking news! I got breaking news.
Breaking news. Oh, this is fun. This is exciting. Yes, first breaking news of Bleeding Blue. Go.
Aaron Boone says Neil Walker is dealing with neck pain and some sort of illness.
Oh, is it hand, foot, and mouth disease?
It could be hand, foot, and mouth. We don't know.
Oh, Jesus. Oh, boy.
That's not good news there for the Yankees.
Tyler Wade, here we come.
No, Torreyes, here we come.
Oh, Torreyes, yeah, that's right.
Let's bring up
He's been killing it.
Bring up Toe.
You want to know what this team and Drew, maybe you could speak on this a little bit. You know, I'm not in the locker room. Nobody on Twitter is in the locker room. But this team, it kind of feels like they need that kind of presence again. And I can't even honestly tell you what kind of presence Ronald Torreyes had. All everyone knows is that he just had a really good presence in the Yankee locker room. Do you guys kind of feel like maybe this is the type of presence that this Yankee team needs right now? And I'm not saying, oh, they're going to turn around and go on a huge winning streak now, but it just in terms of, I don't know, overall morale and maybe energy, because I feel like that's something that Yankee fans really want right now. And that's just overall energy.
Yeah, no, I think that's fair. I mean, there was a long stretch when Torreyes got sent down. I think I guess it was late April, early May. Everyone was really shocked, to be honest, with the roster. You know, it was you use the expression, it's a good problem to have. Well, it's not a very good problem for Ronald Torreyes to be playing in AAA when he'd probably be starting on most major league teams outside of, probably the top 7 or 8 teams in the league. And then he had the unfortunate family situation, which really kept him, obviously out of the big leagues and not even playing baseball for what I think ended up being over a month or 6 weeks or so. And happily, everything from what I've heard is that everything is A-okay with his wife and family, which is, of course, priority number one. And since he's gotten back to baseball, yeah, you're right. He's been, just being back, playing AAA ball in Scranton. I think it would be an energy boost. and certainly, he's not just holding a spot on the roster. If he's at where he was and has been these last, year and a half of just play every fifth day, and okay, he's going to go 3 for 4, or pinch hit, or play defense. He's a very good defender. Mm-hmm. I think you certainly be energize the team. But again, it's a roster situation. I guess Luke Voigt would be the obvious move. But then you don't have another first baseman, et cetera. So you have Walker. Then you worry about options with Voigt and things like that. But I think the bigger thing is that locker room needs Aaron Judge back in the lineup. He's still been able to be present with the I don't want to say odd injury, but just the not do anything. You can't do anything for it. He's still lifting weights, still doing everything except swinging a bat, which seems odd to me.
Yeah.
But having him back in that lineup, I think would just really help rejuvenate this team as well. But I would like to see, I think the Yankees would like to see Ronald Reyes back, because not only is he a great guy and everything, but he adds to this team, the depth of this team. I mean, they have a legitimate 40-man roster, but they can only have 25 guys. And he'll be up in September, too. You have to remember that. September, you got those 6 games against the Red Sox. They're all in September. The way it's shaking out, if you still want that division goal, you at least have to go 4-2. You probably have to go 5-1 in those 6 games and take care of business against really the rest of the schedule, which is right. 80% against teams with records below 500, maybe even 85%. So, yeah, I would say getting toe back up some Saturday Night Live cooler shots with Didi would be welcomed for Yankees universe.
Yeah, this was something that we talked about in an unreleased portion of a podcast that Renato and I had. We did like a 40-minute talking thing, and we talked about the presence of Aaron Judge in a lineup and also in a locker room too. Like, there probably was a little bit, brief period of time where after Judge got hurt where he wasn't actually present with the team, but he's the first one out every single home game. First one out, leads the team. He's the guy that brings everybody back into the dugout, pats him gives him a tap. Mm-hmm. Good job. Yeah. He's you think of the Yankees, the first picture that comes to your mind right now is Aaron Judge.
Yeah, he's certainly becoming, I think, the face of the Yankees, if he's not really that already. Of course, you have veterans like CeCe, you have Sevy coming up, and you now have Stanton, of course, right. And then other players as well. But he's certainly that face of this team, and he just exudes energy. I mean, he's not just a great baseball player; he has a great attitude about life too, and he knows how to play baseball, play it well, and have some fun too while doing it. And that's why everyone loves him. So when he gets back, which you hope is, from what I've heard, it's an injury where you can't really put a timetable on it, because it's all about when he doesn't feel pain on the full range of motion of his right wrist, but he's still throwing and lift. The thing that really confuses me is the whole lifting weights, because if you're lifting weights, I would feel like you're using your full range of motion of your wrist, but apparently not, which is good. So it's not that serious. So it should just be a matter of time. That 3 weeks, I think everyone knew, was a little optimistic. But once apparently that pain subsides or is non-existent, whatever the threshold they want, of course, I think a lot of it's based on just Judge, how he feels. And I don't know how really Steve Donahue and the trainers communicate that. When is it right? I'm sure they do, and no one's going to take any chances. To come back a game or two earlier than would be right. It's just once that's gone, I think it's only going to be a couple days. I don't necessarily think he's going to need rehab or anything like that. So, say tomorrow, the pain's gone, he might be in the lineup Wednesday or even Tuesday.
I've heard that they're still going to go to rehab games. That's what I heard.
Oh, they think he will go to rehab games?
I think, in order to get his swing right and get his momentum going, they may send him to, scram a couple games.
I can see that.
Yeah, because the way that the Yankees initially worded it, and the Yankees, they're so good in a lot of different ways, and not just baseball. Like the way that they worded that tweet that came out after that Royals game, and Renato and I were there as well. We go to a lot of Yankee games, and we look for you, Drew. He is not going to be able to swing a baseball bat in like a game situation for 3 weeks. So they didn't say he's going to be out for 3 weeks. They just said in a game situation, Aaron Judge will not be able to swing a bat for 3. So it's kind of like, well, yeah, okay, that doesn't mean anything. So he can be out for 3 weeks, but it was funky. Like they're smart. The Yankees are smart, and I know you already know this, Drew. The Yankees are smart in the way that they deal with their players and the way they deal with their PR. They're just smart. But his presence and just somebody that my overall point is that somebody that you could just look to in a lineup, like Judge is coming up, and you play fans. Not only fans don't get excited, I can imagine that just excites a team. Like instead of looking at the top of your order, and obviously Aaron Hicks has proven himself this year, but you get pumped because you got Gardner, who's at the top of your order. You got pumped because you got Judge. You got pumped because you got Sanchez. You get pumped because you have Sanchez. It just rallies a team. Instead, you have Walker and Romine and Higgy and Robinson. It's obviously these guys are trying their best to win, but in terms of just energy, morale boosters, getting the team going, getting Judge back, getting Sanchez back. I feel like we've all forgotten about my best friend, Gary Sanchez. Getting those guys back is so key for this team. And part of the reason why I'm not super frustrated with this baseball team, that the fact that they haven't necessarily played their best baseball because they're missing 2 of their best players.
Yeah, that's also, those are not just 2 of their best players, 2 of the best players in the league too, as of late. Sanchez has struggled a little bit this year, but you take 2 guys out of the lineup, and not only does it, obviously they're not there, but it affects everyone else. Brett Gardner doesn't see as many fastballs, doesn't see many pitches in the strike zone because they don't want to put him. They don't necessarily care as much about putting him on base because he doesn't have that protection behind him. And you could say that the other way too, with protection. For, let's say, Didi between Judge and Stan. Well, they're going to pitch to Didi, but now they're going to be a little more careful because they only have Stan to worry about. And if there's 2 outs, well, they'll go after Didi more. Obviously, better opportunities for him, but without, and obviously Didi can hit tons of homers, but without that Judge, 40 homer, 100 RBI threat, it changes everything. So I think that's really important pace. And again, I said a little earlier, they're still on pace for 102 or 3 wins.
Yep.
But unfortunately, not on pace with the Red Sox, like 113 or 14. By the way, they have 19 runs tonight against the Orioles on Friday night.
and they were losing. They were losing like 6-3 or 6. They were losing by a few runs.
They were down 8-3 after the 3rd inning.
Yeah. The Orioles have 11 runs and are down by 8.
Like that's some down by 5.
No. So it's tough to beat that. I think we might wrap up there. I feel like that's a good wrap up point. Does anybody have any closing comments?
I just want to thank Drew again. Round of applause to Drew. Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much, Drew. You are the bomb. We've been trying to get this together for a little while. Renato and Drew have been Facebook messaging for a while, but we thank you so much for coming on.
Maybe, I enjoyed it. Maybe
we can have you on again sometime. I would love that.
Yeah, if you guys ever need anyone, let me know. If my schedule allows, I'm happy to pop on. I enjoyed it. Yankees are in good shape. Don't panic, Yankee fans. Plenty of time to go. And yeah, guys, thanks. Prep for life.
Prep for life. Hopefully, we can get you on in November.
All right, I hope so.
All right, so that's going to wrap up. Like I said, I've been promising episodes, and I've been failing terribly. But here we are. You're listening to it. We're back. Giants football's back. Yankees baseball is going on as always, and that's what I love about baseball. Baseball is always happening. It's always going on. I love it. I love it. I love it. We will have some sort of schedule soon Soon there will be an official schedule. But without further ado, we will end Bleeding Blue. Thanks for listening. Thank you, Drew. Go Yankees. Go Yankees. Go Giants. Go Giants. Go Yankees.